All right, so thank you guys for being here with us today. Really excited to do this talk with you guys. So just a little bit of background for anybody who doesn't know me. My name is Erin, and I run Rose Quartz Mediumship. My background is that I have a doctorate in physical therapy. I've always been really drawn to everything healing-based and everything that is a kind of holistic approach to healing. I have completed a 3-year Druid training. I completed a shamanic apprenticeship. I'm a Reiki master. I have my death doula certification. I have a somatic certification and a life coach. And what all of that means is that I love healing. And I absolutely love learning and I love growing. And so I want to start by giving a little bit of a background about what somatic healing is, because I think that sometimes there's some confusion about what somatic healing is. So the concept behind somatic healing is that as we move through this human experience, we experience trauma. So we have experiences that create trauma, meaning we didn't have the capability of fully processing the experience that we were having in the moment that we had it. It was so overwhelming, whether it was overwhelming from an inner sensation standpoint, an emotional standpoint, or a cognitive standpoint, that we essentially stopped trying to feel it. So at some point in time, that sensation, that emotion, was so overwhelming for us that we kind of clamped down in our nervous system and shut down the feeling or the emotion. And what that means is that we have energy stuck in our nervous system. And when you look at our nervous system, there's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And I just want to give you guys the science behind this so that it'll make the rest of the talk make more sense. So when you are in your sympathetic nervous system, that is our fight, flight, and freeze responses. And those, if you think about us, we are mammals. Just like, for example, a zebra is a mammal. And if you think about a zebra who's out on the plains and they're eating, and all of a sudden they detect a little bit of danger, the first thing they're going to do is orient. So they're going to look back and forth, and once they identify, yeah, there is a lion there, they're going to decide 3 different things that they want to do: fight, flight, or freeze. A zebra is probably not going to fight a lion. I mean, it could try, right? But it's probably not going to choose that. It's probably going to pick flight, right? So our mammalian bodies are amazing. They will flood us with all of these beautiful chemicals that allow us to flee, or they allow us to fight. And it's more intense than what we would normally be able to experience. So if you think about a zebra who's running to try and get away from a lion, they're going to be able to run faster, further, for longer than they would normally be able to run because of all these beautiful survival energy chemicals that get flooded into our nervous system. So the science behind this is that when we experience danger, when our nervous system says, hey, there's danger here, whether it's actual danger or the perception of danger, our bodies, our mammals, our mammalian bodies do this beautiful thing where they flood all these chemicals. And we pick fight, flight, or freeze. So in this case, if you think about a zebra, it's going to start running, most likely, right? It's going to run and run and run and run. Let's say the zebra gets away, right? So the lion detects another zebra that it's much more likely to be able to get and eat. So the zebra that we're talking about gets away. Do you know what that zebra does once it finds safety? Yeah. It tells all the other zebras. It could do that for sure, yeah. So what our mammalian nervous system will do is we will purge the survival energy. So if you think about the fact that you just had this big influx of chemicals into your nervous system that allowed you to run faster, further, for longer, that is not energy that you want to keep in your nervous system, right? Have any of you guys had an emergency? A real emergency? And did you notice that you got really shaky and really intense? So when that zebra gets away, it is going to take spontaneous deep breaths, okay? It is going to shake. It is going to shake like crazy. That shaking is the purge of survival energy. That is what a mammal should do. If you watch small children when they get mad, right? They have the perception of danger. When they get mad, what do? Small people. They hit, they kick, they shake, they bite, they scratch. They do that. As adults, we learn that it's not socially acceptable to do those things, right? Like you're mad at your boss in a meeting. You don't punch them. I mean, sometimes it would be nice, right? But you're not going to punch your boss, most likely. And you're probably not going to throw something at your boss, and you're probably not going to spit or bite at your boss. And so what we're doing is clamping down on what the mammal inside of us wants to do, right? So if we go back to the zebra, it gets away, and then it's going to purge the survival energy by shaking. Shake, 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 shake. How many of you guys have ever gotten in a fight and then you find yourself shaky? Do you allow yourself to shake? Probably not, right? Like you might try and clamp it down, like I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to stand in the middle of this meeting and shake like crazy because it feels socially awkward. But if you allowed your body to complete the fight, flight, or freeze response, it would purge the survival energy out of your system. Does that make sense to people? So when we clamp down on these responses that are part of our mammalian body, what we're doing is we're trapping survival energy in our nervous system. So let's talk about if I was a zebra and I chose not to shake, which would never happen, right? I chose not to shake. I chose not to take spontaneous deep breaths. What would happen is I would be in a heightened state of awareness. So I would constantly be looking for danger because my nervous system doesn't understand that I am safe. Does that make sense? So my heightened state of awareness is I am constantly looking for danger. How many of you guys are constantly looking for danger? Right? Yeah, we hate to admit it. But so many of us will either run an anxiety pattern, which means that our nervous system is on, and we are just searching for the next dangerous thing. Which means that our thought patterns are constantly looking for something negative. Right? How many of you guys have this happen to you? A lot of us. The other thing that we can do is kind of depress it. I don't want to feel anxious all the time, so now I'm going to try and stop feeling. And if I try and stop feeling for long enough, I will eventually stop feeling. Right? And that's more of a depressive pattern. So when you think about the mammalian energy inside of you, you are a mammal, just like a zebra is a mammal. When we don't allow ourselves to fully process trauma, it gets stuck in our nervous system. And when it's stuck in our nervous system, then it prevents us from staying in a regulated state, right? So we're in a slightly activated state all the time, or we are in a depressed state all the time, or we have this kind of global activation pattern where we go from 0 to 10 in 2 seconds. Any of you guys do that? Like it takes, yeah, it takes like 2 seconds to light you up. You go from 0 to like I'm throwing punches, like energetically. Your inner energetic posture is I'm going to a 10. The reason that we do this sometimes is because we know that when we get to a 10, we come down. Have you ever like been in a fight and you're like, just scream at me so we can like scream back and forth because I'm going to feel better as soon as that happens. That better is the purge of some survival energy because you completed a fight response or a flight response, and it allows regulation of your nervous system. Does this make sense to everybody? Okay, so now we're going to go back to how do you change your life? How do you create the life of your dreams? Okay, a couple things that go into that. One is being able to identify your uniqueness. What makes you unique? What is authentic and what wants to come out of you? When we're able to identify what makes us unique, what is authentic inside of us, that feels like alignment, right? The issue is that for so many of us, Alignment and authenticity and uniqueness are in direct opposition of societal norms, right? So if you think about societal norms, if society says you should show up in the world this way, but that is in direct opposition to what makes you unique, what feels like it wants to come out of you, you're probably going to clamp down on that or struggle to allow that uniqueness and authenticity to come out. Does that make sense to people? So whether it be your family of origin, whether it be societal norms, whether it be where you were raised, your school system, your community, whatever, we are bombarded constantly by societal norms. And when those are in direct opposition to our uniqueness, it makes it hard for us to live what feels true to us, right? If I want to live a nomadic life, but society says that it's wrong for me to backpack here and go there and move all over the place, that I should buy a house and settle down and have a family, right? Then I have to overcome that societal norm in order for me to feel aligned. Does that make sense to people? So step number one is being able to identify your authenticity and your uniqueness. What wants to come out of you? Who are you? If you were uninterrupted by societal norms, who would you be? Right? And then step number two is understanding that as humans, we're really weird creatures, by the way. We will take a small number of facts and we will create a story around those facts. Okay? Then that story we decided is the truth. It's the truth. It's a singular truth, when in fact it's actually just a truth. It's one truth that we decided to tell ourselves a story about and decide that it was the truth. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. I sell milk at a farmer's market. And I have the kind of repeat customers, they come every single week. And one week, 5 of my customers don't come back to see me. So the facts are, I sell milk at a farmer's market, and I had 5 customers who didn't come back to see me. Let's create a story. What comes to mind for people?
Milk is sour.
My milk is sour. Ah, my milk is sour, guys. Yeah. Okay, so I create a story that my milk is sour or somehow no good. I am not enough. Okay, so I've created a story. I sell milk at a farmer's market. 5 customers stopped coming to see me because there's something wrong with my milk or with me. How many of you tell this kind of a story on repeat? And how many of you recognize that it's literally just a story? So let's tell a different story.
They're all on vacation because it's summer.
That's right, they're all on vacation because it's summer. It has nothing to do with me. They're like in Delaware and in Virginia, and somebody went to the Caribbean, and somebody is just in the mountains, right? It has nothing to do with me. So as humans, we will take a small number of facts, we'll create a story around it. We decide that that story is the truth, right? Have you ever been in a fight with a friend or a disagreement or non-alignment with a family member or friend, and you decide, well, they didn't show up for my birthday because they don't like me. Well, no. Maybe they had a medical emergency. Maybe they had a miscarriage and they don't want to tell you and rain on your birthday. Maybe they're depressed and it has nothing to do with you, but they literally can't get out of bed. But we'll create a story that it's about us, right? We're so neat, us humans. We will create a story around these small number of facts, decide it's the truth. That story that we create, that creates the meaning of our life, right? So if it's raining out and I can't go do an event and I create a story that this is somehow bad or negative, that's meaning for my life. But if I say, oh, it's raining, I guess I'm not supposed to go on the hike, this gives me the opportunity to go to a museum or to cook or to do yoga or whatever else, right? I don't have to decide that because it's raining, it's bad. It could just be a redirection for my life. So I get to decide the kind of story that I want to tell on repeat. And what's interesting about us humans is we will tell the same story over and over again. So if you have never gone through the exercise of really pausing and looking at the stories that you tell yourself, I would highly, highly recommend that you do that. Take the time and start looking at the stories that you tell yourself, because it is not just one aspect of your life that you're telling them on. It is on repeat throughout your life. If you don't like your story, guess what? Tell a different one. This is the thing, it's literally just a story, right? So if you don't want to have the experience of feeling like you are not enough, stop telling the story that you're not enough, right? The stories that we create come from a place of trauma, almost always. They come from experiences that we've had. So as a small child, if I didn't get enough attention from my parents, and I create the story that I'm not enough, right, because my parents weren't paying enough attention to me, guess what story I'm telling as an adult on repeat? I'm not enough. And then if you're somebody who believes in law of attraction, the vibration that you're putting out into the universe is what's being mirrored back at you. So if you feel that you're not enough, you're probably going to continuously have experiences that reinforce the story that you are not enough. Does this make sense to people? So if you want a different reality, you know what you do? You tell a different story. If it was that simple, we'd all be doing it, right? Yeah. Okay, so one thing is to look at the story that you're telling cognitively or cerebrally. And it's really beautiful to identify, this is the story that I'm telling on repeat. The story that I am not enough, or that whatever, right? Whatever the story is that you are telling on repeat, it's one thing to cognitively, cerebrally understand that story and where it came from, the root of that, some experience that you had, and it could be a singular experience, right? Like, I was left at the grocery store by my mom or my dad, and they didn't notice for 15 minutes, and so that singular event created this story that I'm like not enough, that I'm not seen, right? That my parents didn't even notice that I was missing. Or it could be low-level continuous energy, right? So if I'm constantly being quote-unquote ignored by my parents, I might create the story that I'm not enough as a child. And it's not a singular event that I can look back to and say, like, the grocery store event, but it's like a story on repeat that got told to me. So we need to look at telling a different story. It's one thing to do the work in your mind, right? So if you take a human and you break them into 4 quadrants, there's mind, which is male-male energy. There's heart, which is female-female energy. There's body, which is male going into female. And there's spirit, which is female going into male. So it makes a wheel of a human, right? So if you want to tell a different story, you have to be able to tell a different story in all 4 quadrants of you. Which is why there's so many of us who've gone to do some sort of cognitive cerebral retelling of a story, but the old story just keeps looping back around. Have any of you guys had that experience where you've gone to therapy, or you've read a book, or you've done a yoga class, or you did a workshop, and you were like, yes, I'm telling a different story about myself, and then my old story comes back? Whoop. That's because we haven't released it from all 4 quadrants of us. Somatics is going to get to the stories that you are holding in your body, in your nervous system. And what's really neat about somatics is that it gives us access to information that is held unconsciously, okay? So we're going to talk about 5 different channels in somatics. There's your mind. Who here knows their mind well and has no problem accessing their mind? You might spend all of your time there, right? There is imagination and visualization. So right now, if I say, picture a lemon, how many of you guys can picture a lemon? If I say, can you picture the skin? Can you feel the kind of like bumpiness? And there's like almost a waxiness to the skin. Can you feel that? If I were to cut the lemon, can you smell it? Are any of you guys salivating? Yeah. So your imagination channel is active, right? We can go deeper into any of our channels. So mind, imagination and visualization. Body posture. What is my body doing? How many of you guys recognize that your body is talking to you and everybody you're in contact with all day, every day, on repeat? And sometimes we don't recognize the information that it's communicating, right? So if I'm crossing my arms, what am I feeling? Yeah, I'm probably not feeling safe in some capacity, and I'm trying to be protective, right? Well, it might be comfortable because on repeat we feel unsafe. Yeah, so our bodies tell stories all day long. They talk to us, we talk to them. Sometimes we're not aware of what our body's saying to us, right? So when you look at your body, it will tell you all sorts of things, non-verbal communication, right? So if you notice that I'm talking with my hands and my hands keep doing this, what do you think is my hand is actually trying to do? So if you see me doing this on repeat, I'm telling a story and my hands start doing this. Have any of you guys ever done that? Probably your hand's actually trying to make a fist or trying to scratch. And you are suppressing that fight energy that's coming out of you. Because at some point in time you were taught that you cannot bite, kick, scratch other people in your reality. And so the mammal inside of you, right, like if you were out in the woods as a bear and somebody made you mad, you would not think twice about biting them, chasing them off, growling at them. But as a human, we're not going to do that. We're going to override the mammal response that's happening in our body. And so what that overriding might look like is me talking with my hands when really I'm trying to make a fist, right? Or if I'm tapping my toe on repeat, I'm sitting here, it's a nervous twitch. It's actually probably a flight response. I want to leave the situation, right? And so my body is trying to tell me I'd like to leave. If I'm sitting in a room and I keep checking for all of the exits, do you know what I'm doing? Flight response. I don't want to be here. And so I'm looking for my way out. That's my body. The mammal inside of me is trying to do that, right? So that's in the middle. So these over here, mind, imagination, and visualization, those are more on the divine masculine side. Body postures in the middle, halfway between divine feminine and divine masculine. It is a really beautiful kind of conduit into our unconscious. Then we've got inner sensations. That's what happens inside of your body. So if you are feeling happy, what does that feel like inside of your body? So if you guys try and think about some experience that you had recently where you were really happy, what did that feel like inside? Did it feel warm? Did it feel bubbly? Did you notice that like right around your heart you were feeling some expansion? Right? Can you think of a time recently where you felt really scared? What did that energy look like and feel like? Did it feel contractive? Did it feel like you wanted to pull into yourself? Did it feel cold? Did it feel dark? Right? So that's all the inner sensation channels. What is happening inside of my body? And then emotions, right? What's interesting about inner sensations and emotions is that they're very receptive. They're on our divine feminine side. And we have less conscious awareness of them. So if I say to you, be happy, can you guys just be happy? No, it's ridiculous, right? Now you might be able to think in mind, where we have more conscious awareness about a happy experience. Maybe you could put yourself in a body posture that says happy. I'm going to start smiling. And those two things might evoke the emotion of happiness, right? So we're in mind. We've got the imagination and visualization channel. I'm thinking about a happy experience I had. I'm going to start smiling. Maybe my shoulders are going to go back. Now I actually feel the emotion of happiness. But we can't typically just feel happy, or we would. And so again, we have less conscious awareness of inner sensations and emotions. And so they're a beautiful way for us to access the stories that are held unconsciously in our nervous system, right? So we talked about stories around facts. We create stories around a small number of facts. We do that cognitively, cerebrally, in a mind-based place. We also do it in body, which is done in our nervous system. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm a small child. I'm playing soccer with my siblings. I get kicked in the face with a soccer ball. I know, it hurts a lot, right? And I'm bleeding, and it looks like, okay, we're gonna have to get some medical intervention here. My mammal body tries to run away. What are the adults gonna do? They're gonna run after me, and they're gonna catch me, and they're gonna hold me down, right? And they're gonna assess what's happening. They're probably gonna bring me to a dentist or an emergency room where I'm going to be held down more, right? So you can see how as a child, I wouldn't be able to complete the flight response that my body wanted to do. I wanted to run away from the soccer ball. And now my nervous system might create this story that soccer balls are somehow bad. And we could sit here and say like, well, so what does it matter, right? But as an adult, I'm in the park and I see people playing soccer and I'm doing this. And I'm not aware of it, but I just noticed that like my shoulder keeps coming up. That's a protective reflex that maybe never got to be completed when I was trying to protect my face and then run. So your body remembers it, and your body has decided that soccer balls are dangerous or bad, right? So now when my friends say, let's go to the soccer game, internally I'm like, I can't go to the soccer game because I might get hit in the face and this is really unsafe, right? So there's my flight response coming out because I never got to complete the flight response. Is this making sense to people? So my nervous system made a story that soccer balls are dangerous. Okay, that's held in my system. Fast forward 20 years, maybe I want to be able to go to a soccer game with my friends. Maybe I want to be able to be in the park and not flinch and not feel anxious, right? So in order for me to do that, I need my nervous system to come back to here and now, right? So at 30 or 35 or 40 or 70, I don't care how old you are, you want your nervous system to be present with you. But it might be stuck in the past when you were 4, when you got kicked in the face with a soccer ball, right? So you want your nervous system to come back into presence with you in the here and now. But unless you discharge the survival energy that was around that experience, it's going to be really hard for you to be present in reality where you can say, a soccer ball is really not that dangerous. It's just not. It could be, right? It was once. And that was true once, and that was true, right? It was dangerous, it was scary, but that was a moment in time. And I created a whole story around that and held the story. And that story now drives my bus, right? And if I want to drive my bus, if I want to live a life that feels authentic and aligned, then I probably need to get over this soccer ball experience. We can all kind of see the soccer ball experience, right? Now, what if instead of a soccer ball, I said, like, your friends on the schoolyard excluded you, and all of a sudden you don't feel like you belong. You don't feel like you're enough. You've created a really intense rejection story that is held in your nervous system. And so when you go to get a new job, maybe you're not even going to apply to new jobs because you're holding a story that you are not enough and that you will be rejected in community. So you notice that you start shying away from new jobs. And maybe you don't even apply for new jobs, not because you don't want a new job, but because you don't want to be rejected again. Can you see how that story might really not serve us if we're looking for a new job? And maybe you don't even apply for new jobs, not because you don't want a new job, but because you don't want to be rejected again. Can you see how that story might really not serve us if we're looking for a new job? So going back and recognizing that our nervous system can be stuck in the past, in a singular experience or in kind of like an undertone, right? So if I was told I wasn't enough as a child on repeat, that story might be held in my nervous system. It doesn't have to be a singular event. It could be a low-level, constant stimulation. In order for us to get our nervous system in presence with what's happening here and now, if we want a new job, I might need to go back to the experience of being rejected as a child on a playground. But what's really, really interesting about our nervous system is that there is no like manuscript that says, hey, do you remember the experience for those 5 seconds where you were rejected on a playground by your friends? Yeah, that's driving your bus. It's holding you back. You actually have to go and find that story yourself. And so what's really neat about somatics is that it allows us to find these unconsciously held stories. And the way that we do that is to move through the 5 channels of awareness. You guys remember them? Mind, imagination and visualization, body posture, inner sensations, emotions. So as you bring your awareness in and out of those 5 channels, your unconsciously held stories that probably do not serve you and may have been accurate at one moment in time, but they're not accurate now. When you move your awareness through those channels, you will purge survival energy, and that story will come up, that experience, that memory will come up, and you'll get the opportunity to complete the response that needed to happen, right? Like maybe you wanted to fight with your friend on the school ground and say like, why are you excluding me? But you didn't do that. You didn't complete the fight response that your mammal body tried to complete. And instead, like maybe you went and found a different friend to play with, and so you never discharged that survival energy out of your system. You didn't complete the response. Somatics gives you the opportunity to complete that response. And then we make a new story that I am enough and that I can be accepted and have a sense of belonging in community. Does that make sense to people? So what's really, really neat about somatics, that sounded really unfortunate. So what's really neat about somatics is that it gives us access to our unconsciously held stories that are driving our bus. And it is a really, really beautiful modality for purging survival energy out of our system so that our nervous system can be in regulation and that it can feel good to us. Right? So we're going to go back to the example of the zebra. If the zebra was running, it gets away, and it doesn't purge the survival energy, which, by the way, would never happen. A zebra will always purge the survival energy unless they get eaten, and then it wouldn't purge the survival energy. So let's say the zebra didn't purge the survival energy. So its nervous system, its brain, still thinks that there's a really high risk, right? So it's running in an anxious, activated state. It is always on, right? As that zebra dips into regulation, its nervous system is going to be like, did you want to look for the next bad thing? Look for the next bad thing. Which is why people who have survival energy or emotional trauma stuck in their nervous system will constantly look for the next bad thing when they start feeling good. How many of you guys look for the next bad thing when you start feeling good? Yeah. Being able to admit that is going to help you in regulating your nervous system. And by the way, that's not the same pattern for everybody. There's lots of patterns that our nervous system can run. But if you think about a zebra who got away and didn't purge the survival energy, then it's constantly looking for lions, right? It's like on the lookout for lions. That is a beautiful thing that its nervous system is doing. Because if you think about a zebra that's out on the plains, and let's say a lion comes into the area, we actually want to be activated, right? I want activation in my nervous system to tell me to get out of the way, or else I'm probably going to get eaten. And I'm probably not going to enjoy the experience of dying. So you want your nervous system, if there's danger, to stay activated, right? So this mechanism in our nervous system is a healthy and beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. So when we as humans start dipping into regulation, and then it's like, I'm sitting on the couch just relaxing, and it's like, oh, I have to go do laundry. I should check my phone. I wonder what's happening on Instagram. I'm going to look for the next bad thing. That is because our nervous system is dipping into regulation, and the mammal inside of us is like, but you might die. And so I'm going to give you a little activation. And that activation might look like seeking the next bad thing to think about, right? That's a healthy, normal thing that our nervous system does. We don't actually need to break it. We just need to purge the survival energy so that our nervous system actually knows that we're safe and we can stay in regulation. Does that make sense to people? Yeah? Okay, so when you are looking at somatics and when you are looking at trying to live a life that feels good, it is one thing to consciously see the stories that hold you back, right? So whether you're in meditation or whether you're journaling or you listen to a podcast or you're chatting with a friend and you're like, oh, shoot, yeah, I'm actually really scared of being seen. And so if I launch this business, if I apply for this job and then I'm seen, that actually feels scary to me. There's conscious awareness. I know that. It's one thing to be able to work on the conscious awareness, the things that we know and we can see. Magic happens when you can look at the stories that are unconsciously held in your nervous system. That is when you're going to change your life. Okay? Because it is the unconscious stories that are held in your nervous system that stop you from getting what you want. So how many of you guys have looked at manifesting and felt like it was a struggle? Right? So when you look at manifesting, it's about feeling a certain way and becoming an energetic match for whatever it is that I want. Right? I want a new job. I want a new partner. I want a large sum of money to get dropped into my hand and then my bank account, right? I need to become a vibrational match for that. That's how manifesting works, right? I have to feel the way that I would feel with a new partner, or I have to feel the way that I would feel with a bunch of money in my bank account. The issue with that is that in order to feel, right, those inner sensations, if I have a story that says that money will somehow make me a bad person, and I'm holding that in my nervous system, every time I start to go towards more money, my nervous system is going to stop me. Right? My nervous system is going to lean away from it. And so being able to see these unconsciously held stories is going to unlock all sorts of things in your system. So if we think about, I'm running a business and I want to market myself more so my business can expand, for example. If I do the somatic work to recognize that I'm actually scared of being seen, that there was some experience as a child where I was seen and I felt uncomfortable or I felt rejected or something happened, if I can get to that unconsciously held story, it might not mean that I know how to market myself any better, right? I still have to figure out how to market my business better, but it changes the way that I feel about it, right? Have you ever done something and you're like, that feels impossible? Whether it's a new partner, a new job, and I don't care, whatever. It feels impossible. The feeling is what blocks you from doing it. It's actually not impossible, right? It's not impossible at all. It's just that you have decided that it is impossible, and so it feels impossible. So if we think about needing to do marketing in my business, and it feels impossible. It feels exhausting to find somebody who can support me or a course that I could take that would teach me how to market. I'm probably not going to do it. I'm probably going to find 9 million other things that I could do with my time and or energy. But if I purge the energy that I'm holding in my nervous system that says that if I'm seen and if I make more money, that I will somehow become a bad person, if I purge that story out of my nervous system, I will feel different about finding a pathway to marketing my business. It is in the feeling different that allows us to do it. It's the energetic resistance. Does that make sense to people? So when you find the energetic resistance that holds you back from whatever it is that you're trying to get to, sorry guys, when you find that energetic resistance and you release it, it will open up doors for you. You will be able to see the world very differently. And so somatics is going to give you the ability to access your unconscious, the stories that you're holding in your nervous system that don't align with the life you want to live. Whenever somebody comes to me and they're like, I have no resistance to finding a new partner, but it's been 6 years and I can't find a new partner. My answer is maybe consciously you have no resistance, but unconsciously or subconsciously, you clearly have resistance or you'd already have it, because we're all just energy. This is how energy works, right? And so it's in accepting that there is some form of resistance and then finding the resistance and rewiring that story allows that person to find a new partner. The finding of the story might feel really, really daunting or hard, but it's actually not. Somatics, I will say, is life-changing and super easy. Once you understand a nervous system and you understand how to move through those 5 channels of awareness, you are going to find all sorts of really, really toxic stories that you hold in your nervous system. They're just total bullshit, guys. They're total, I mean, they were true at one point in time, right? Like the soccer ball, it was true at one point in time. But it's a bullshit story that a soccer ball is dangerous for me for the rest of my life. That's a ridiculous thought pattern. But my body doesn't think it's ridiculous. It's stuck in the past. It's stuck with my 4-year-old self who got kicked in the face with a soccer ball. So when I can find that story and when I can complete the fight, flight, or freeze response that I needed to complete but didn't get the opportunity to complete, the purge of energy happens and I create a new story. What does a purge of energy look like? How many of you guys know what a purge of energy looks like? Say it again. Crying. Yeah. Crying, laughing, spontaneous deep breaths. How many of you guys get through an emotional response and then you're like, that's a purge of energy. Shaking. How many of you guys get in a fight? It could be a verbal fight and then you're like, that is a purge of energy. If you don't tighten down on it and try and stop the shaking, and you just allow your body to do what your body wants to do, you will purge energy. It can also look like laughing. It can look like vomiting. It can look like diarrhea. How many of you guys get nervous and then all of a sudden you've got diarrhea? Yeah, energy stuck in your system, purging. So being able to find the stories that are unconsciously held in your system and purge the energy out of your system gives you the space to create a new story, right? So let's say I want a new partner. I find the energetic resistance to the new partner. I purge that energy, and then it gives me the space to create a new story. This is the really fun part, guys. So many people will purge the energy, and then they might like gently find a new story. And you know what will happen if they don't really anchor that new story into their reality? They'll go back to their old story. Shoot, right? And so when you purge that energy out of your nervous system, you want to anchor a new story in, right? So the way that we anchor a new story in is to use the 5 channels. So if I create a new story that I'm actually worthy of a partner, that's true. That nothing bad will happen if I get a new partner. Then I start using the 5 channels. What does it feel like inside of my body? What emotion does it bring up to think about having a new partner? How would I hold my body, right? And that's not just like in this moment, but like, how do you walk across a room? If you know that you are enough, and let's just do this for a second. I want you to try closing your eyes. If you don't want to close your eyes, you don't have to. Just kind of imagine if you were the most confident version of you. How would you hold your head when you walk across a room? How would you hold your shoulders? Would there be a difference in the way that you step or the way that your feet make contact with the floor? Would there be a difference in the way that you respond to any sort of stimulation? What would your self-care practice look like? What food or drink would you put in your body? Right? So when we ground these stories into ourselves, it actually changes the way that we move through the world. How many of you guys noticed a difference, the most confident version of you? Did you walk across the room differently in your imagination channel? Any of you guys? Yeah? Did any of you guys notice a difference in the way that you held up your head? Did you notice a difference in who you allow in your reality or what you put in your body for food or drink? It's in those little details, right? So if we get a new story and we ground it into our nervous system and we start going like, oh, well, the version of me that knows that I'm enough, that version of me eats fruit for breakfast. But maybe this version of me is eating a bagel with cream cheese for breakfast. So how do I become that version? You eat fruit for breakfast, right? And so this is the fun part. Once you figure out what that version of you would do, how would that version of you move through the world? How would that version of you show up in a room where you didn't know anyone? How would that version of you hold a boundary? How would that version of you respond when somebody is pressing a boundary? It's in those little details that we start energetically aligning with the reality that we want, right? So for anybody who's been through a manifesting course and it feels frustrating to be like, okay, but how do I feel like I have $1 million? Well, because I don't. My bank account does not have $1 million. The way that you become an energetic match for something is to look at what would that version of me do. You don't have $1 million in your bank account, but you could say that version of me would turn off my phone at 5 o'clock. So then what do you start doing? Turning off your phone at 5 o'clock. That version of me would allow 10 minutes of meditation in the morning. So what do you start doing? 10 minutes of meditation in the morning, right? So when you start figuring out what that version of you would do, and you start doing what that version of you would do, you are becoming an energetic match for the thing that you want to bring into your reality, for the life that you want to live, for the person who you want to be, for the experiences that you want to have. You become an energetic match by grounding that new story of you so deeply into your nervous system that when you see a bagel in the morning, you're like, nah, not eating that bagel. I'm going to go find some pineapples or strawberries, right? That's how you become an energetic match for the things that you want. Does this make sense to people? You act like the version of you who's already there. And you just wait for your reality to catch up, and it will. The reality that you're living is a result of the way that you move through the world. It is a result of the stories that you are holding unconsciously in your nervous system. If you want a different reality, it's pretty simple. Purge those old stories, complete the fight, flight, or freeze response, purge the energy, create a new story, and then live that story until your physical reality catches up. And it will. It will catch up.